Bedtime story. Military bases are often built on old grounds, battlefields, ancient cemeteries, or places where accidents just happen. But sometimes the scariest things don't come from the ground. They come from the silence of a night shift. At 2 a.m. alone inside a dark C-141 Starlifter, an Air Force mechanic heard combat boots walking straight toward him. He waited at the top of the stairs to catch the intruder, but when he jumped down with his flashlight, there was no one there. This happened at Altus Air Force Base, Oklahoma. The C-141 is a massive transport aircraft. When it's empty, it feels like a cathedral of aluminum and wire. It has a specific smell: hydraulic fluid, old canvas and stale air. Our protagonist, let's call him Sergeant Miller, was pulling maintenance on the tail section. The T-tail of a C-141 is high up. It's isolated. You are essentially working in a small room, suspended 40 feet in the air, disconnected from the world. Miller was used to the graveyard shift. He liked the quiet, or so he told himself. He knew the rumors about this specific bird. Every crew chief whispered about it. They said, years ago when airmen had been crushed to death in the ramp door during a loading accident. A violent, instant end. But Miller was a mechanic. He believed in nuts, bolts, and physics, not ghosts. He froze. The sound came from the cargo deck below. Heavy footsteps, distinctive. The hard, rhythmic strike of standard-issue combat boots hitting the metal floor. Miller checked his watch. 02:15. No one else was scheduled to be on the aircraft. Pipeline security wouldn't board without announcing themselves. His mind immediately went to the logical explanation. The crew chief. Probably trying to catch me sleeping, trying to scare the new guy. Miller felt a surge of adrenaline, not fear, but annoyance. He decided to turn the tables. He crept to the edge of the flight deck hatch, right above the ladder. He turned off his headlamp. Complete darkness. He gripped his heavy maglite flashlight like a club. He listened. The breathing. He could almost hear the fabric of a uniform swishing. The presence was right there, just 3 feet below him. He counted down in his head. 3, 2, 1. Gotcha! He yelled, flooding the stairwell with light. Nothing. The stairwell was empty. The cargo deck was empty. The silence that followed was heavier than the noise. It wasn't just quiet. It was a vacuum. Miller felt the hairs on his arms stand up, not from cold, but from a sudden, primal realization. The air in front of him was freezing. A concentrated pocket of ice-cold air where a person should have been standing. He didn't pack his tools. He didn't lock the hatch. He ran. He sprinted out of the C-141, across the tarmac, and didn't stop until he reached the break room lights. He never worked on that tail number alone again. And he never asked whose footsteps he heard, because he was afraid someone might actually tell him. If hearing something invisible is terrifying, seeing something that defies physics is life-changing. Fort Devens, Massachusetts, a place steeped in history. During World War II, it housed German and Italian prisoners of war. And in Hailfall, the past refuses to stay buried. Hale Hall was a training facility for intelligence, secure, restricted. You didn't just walk in there. It was 1990. A young military policeman, let's call him Private Davis, was on the interior patrol. It was a boring job. Check the locks, walk the perimeter, stay awake. Hale Hall had a reputation. The upper floors were often empty at night. People spoke of George, a spirit, supposedly a former POW, who had ended his own life in the building decades prior. Davis was on the 3rd floor when he saw him, at the end of the hallway, about 50 yards away. A figure. It wasn't a shadow. It looked like a man, dressed in gray, standing perfectly still, facing away from Davis. "Halt!" Davis shouted. His voice cracked slightly. "Identify yourself." Standard procedure. Challenge the intruder. The figure didn't flinch. It began to walk. Not run. Walk. A slow, deliberate pace towards the far wall. Davis raised his weapon, a standard issue M19145 caliber pistol, a heavy gun, a man-stopper. I said halt. Get on the ground. The figure ignored him. It was heading straight for a dead end, a solid brick wall. Adrenaline took over training. Davis perceived a threat to a secure facility. He fired. One round, center mass. At that range, Davis couldn't miss. He was a marksman. He expected the man to drop. He expected blood. He expected a scream. Instead, he watched the impossible. The bullet impacted the brick wall, kicking up a cloud of red dust. But the man didn't even slow down. He walked straight into the bricks. No collision, no sound. He simply passed through the solid masonry like it was smoke. 1 second he was there, solid enough to cast a shadow. The next, he was part of the wall. When the backup arrived, they found Davis, pale, shaking, staring at the wall. They dug the bullet out of the bricks. There was no intruder, no secret door, just a hole in the wall, and a story that every MP at Fort Devens knows, but wishes wasn't true. Sometimes the military gives you a warning, a direct order. Don't go there. Don't touch that. Usually it's for your safety. Sometimes it's for your sanity. Vandenberg Air Force Base, California, the early 70s. The barracks here were old wooden structures from the World War II era. Creaky, drafty, full of memories. There was one room in Squadron 3 that remained empty. Room 204. New airmen arriving at the base were given a simple, unofficial briefing by the older guides. You can sleep anywhere, but do not sleep in 204. Legend had it, An airman had hanged himself in that room years ago. Since then, the room belonged to him. Airman Stevens didn't buy it. He was tired. He was fresh out of basic training, and he just wanted a bed. The other rooms were crowded. 204 was empty. Ghosts don't pay rent, he joked. He threw his gear on the rack. He set up his family photos. He closed the door. He left the room to go to the latrine and wash up for dinner. He was gone for maybe 10 minutes, 15 at most. He whistled as he walked back down the hall, towel over his shoulder. But as he approached room 204, he stopped whistling. His pew wasn't in the room. His duffel bag, his uniform, his photos, everything he had just unpacked, it was all piled neatly in the center of the hallway, exactly 2 feet from the door. The door was locked. Stevens felt a cold sweat break out on his neck. He had the only key. He fumbled for it, unlocked the door, and pushed it open. The room was ice cold. The air was thick, like walking into water. And then he saw it. In the far corner, where the streetlight from outside couldn't reach, a shadow. It wasn't cast by anything. It was standing there, watching. It didn't have eyes, but Stevens could feel the weight of its stare. A hate-filled, territorial stare. Get out. He didn't hear the words with his ears. He felt them vibrate in his skull. Stevens slept in the day room on a couch that night. The next day, he requested a transfer to a different squadron. He didn't care that he lost his favorite photo in the move. He never went back into room 204. To this day, in old barracks across the country, there are rooms that stay locked, and if you put your ear to the door, sometimes you can hear someone pacing inside. Have you ever served? Have you ever walked a lonely post and felt eyes on your back? Tell us your story in the comments. And remember, just because you can't see them doesn't mean you're alone. Subscribe for more true horror.